Hello everybody, welcome back to our workshops on the Bach cello suite. Today, Sarabande from the Fifth Suite. I'm Jean-Guihen Queyras, this is IDAGIO Live, and our guest today will be a great jazzman, saxophonist Raphaël Imbert, in about 15 to 20 minutes. Today, before we go to this very, very special movement, I want to share something that this exchange with all of you outside. One of the beautiful aspects of this exchange over the last months has been someone from England, George Watson, who is following these workshops, sent me a very nice and inspiring message that I want to share with you. With his authorization, I asked him. So George wrote, "Hello, Mr. Queyras. Congratulations on the Adagio Bach project. My partner and I were in the audience that wonderful night at Wigmore Hall on March 11, when you, Daniel Sepek, and Tabea Zimmermann played Beethoven trios. That was at the Wigmore Hall, and by the way, special day for me. March 11 is my birthday, and this was my last concert before the lockdown. Sorry, that was not from the letter from George. That was what I wanted to say about this. And I want to insert one more anecdote in this, is that, as I said, it was my birthday. And Daniel Sepek and Tabea Zimmermann are not only my absolute dream chamber music partners, but they are very, very dear friends for many years. And they totally surprised me when, on that day for my birthday, just before the concert, they brought me a present. And guess what that present was? It was the shirt you see here and that I have been wearing for many of my workshops here, because I love it so much for many reasons, because I like it, and also because it came from these dear friends. Okay, this has nothing to do with our subject. I go back to the letter by George Watson. I was looking at the program, so on this program of the Wigmore Hall, and I saw that your instrument was made by Kappa in 1696, and the strange thought occurred to me that in the year that marvelous instrument was made, the Kappa, Bach was 11 years old, Vivaldi turned 18, and Beethoven was not yet to be born for 74 more years. How strange and beautiful that we can listen to it still. I just very much liked this idea, and I found it very inspiring, and it's one of the ways that we can take distance from this sort of mud we are going through now, all of humanity, and by thinking of what this instrument may have seen over the centuries, and that Bach was 11 years old when Kappa was carving the wood to make this instrument sound, which now has played his music, Bach's music, so many times. So a nice anachronism, if you would like. Now let's go to a question of one of our viewers, Yves, who has already sent many questions. Yves is very, he's sending on schedule before the workshop the question to the movement of that workshop. So Yves Scheuring from Germany, and he is asking this. He's saying, with the Sarabande from the Fifth Suite, Bach breaks with his typical approach, as this Sarabande is the only one without a double stop or a chord. It is the lack of chords, is it the lack of chords that make this movement in particular so special and almost philosophic? Thank you for this question, dear Yves. And yes, the short answer is yes. And Yves is absolutely right. There is not one double stop, not one chord vertically played in this entire Sarabande. And this is not by chance, of course. With Bach, it's never by chance. Before I explain why this sarabande is so particular and why this point to which Yves is referring is so important, let's again go through the chronology of our sarabande so far. Remember, the sarabande is originally a very strong attraction, a sensuous attraction from originally from the first to the second beat. In the first read, one, two. In the second suite, you remember it was a mix of attraction to the second beat, but also attraction between two bars. In the third suite, we again had we came back to something which was more similar to the first suite. One, two. This very sensuous relationship between the first and the second beat. Originally, people say it's a dance from Spain, very erotic, they say, and for sure very sensuous. Now, the fourth suite was already departing quite strongly from this, because for the first time, the second beat was definitely not a strong one, and all this force of attraction was about going to the second bar. Now I can not really play it with this chord at all. So it was all about going to this second bar. So I guess the one common denominator between all these sarabandes in their different ways is that there is something, this sense of that we have to be pulled somewhere so that it will inspire us now, let's say as dancers, to go towards that beat in a very touchy way, in a way. So now, how does Bach do this in the Sarabande of the Fifth? Well, he's going to do it by two means, which are basically not the ones we expect. He's going to give us this very attractive second beat through the means of dissonance. That means on almost all the second beats through this sarabande, the note we play on the second beat is not part of the harmony. It is an appoggiatura, a Fremdnote, a note that doesn't belong to the harmony and therefore which is dissonant and therefore more expressive. And by this means, the mean of this dissonance, he's going to enable us to suggest a bass note which will be heard only one beat later. Now, that sounds very complicated and intellectual. I will play the first 4 bars on the cello, and then I will go to the piano to show you what it's about. Now, the reason I want to go to the piano is that I want, in a way, I am going to be a spoiler because I'm going to show you what's in the background. And I can imagine you are there thinking, well, why does he show us what's in the background? Because Bach didn't want us to know it. Well, the thing is that as a performer, I need to refer to this background a suggested bass line in order to make my phrasing, my sound, to make it sensible. So let's do this first part that we just played. So, as you could hear, on the second beat, they get very expressive when you hear them in this context. So, what does it tell us? It tells us that the main protagonist, in a way, in this fifth suite is the harmony that is not played. So he's always suggesting it. So this is to get back to the question of Eve. Why do we get a sense of touching the irreal, of going away from materialism? Well, it's because the most important in this Sarabande is, in the end, what you will not hear. But yet I want to insist, because I know that quite a few of you out there are colleagues, are cellists, and uh, we need performers to really sense this in order to feel this A flat on the second beat. And another good reason is that so that we remember that when we play it on the third beat, this A flat has already been around since the second beat, so don't play it with a lot of bow. Don't give it too much weight, as if it was a new harmony. Now, the next four bars, Bach goes from the bass, not anymore from our soprano line, so it's a bit more serene, I would say, but still the appoggiatura. And then here, for the first time, an appoggiatura on the downbeat. Appoggiatura also. Now, the beginning of the second part, excuse me for this back and forth, I need to go back again to the piano, because this what's our bass line? Well, this D flat that Bach gives us is coming on the second beat. Now, what does that mean? He is doing, again, in an untold way, he's putting the most dissonant, the worst dissonance you can do, which is playing the D natural against the D flat in the bass. So again, you hear after four bars from the top, again, like in the first part, we go from the bass. And then, probably the most enigmatic moment in this sarabande. So basically we are doing this in the bass, and he's like he does sometimes, he's ornamenting what's our bass again. And now the most expressive, we had just before the most enigmatic, now comes the most expressive moment in the coda. Bach is going to do what we have seen in many movements. He likes to finish movements like this with an ascending chromatic line in the bass, which means the chromatic means, sort of difficult way up, and with the largest impetus to make it very expressive. And then cadenza. So I apologize for being a spoiler for those of you who don't want to know what's back there, because again, this piece would not be as interesting if the bass was really harmonized and was played. So before I finish on this, I want to, in case some of you have a different idea about the bass, I want to say something about this. I absolutely think that there are different solutions, and that the ones that I propose now is one of them. There is a very good argument to know that, is that we know that Bach harmonized many chorals, these Lutheran chorals from the office, or I don't know how it's called in English, from the mass, on Sunday mornings. These chorals, these traditional chorals, so he harmonized them, and many of them he harmonized 3 times, 4 times. He would never put the same bass twice on the same choral. So for him, it's a clear thing that that one and the same melody, one and the same soprano can be harmonized in many different ways, and that's what he finds interesting. Now, that makes it even more fascinating that in this piece that he chose to not reveal, not give us any of these possibilities, leaving us wondering, what is there? And there is a lot of unknown, and this is the most important. And this is what makes, in my view, this very sarabande is the actual keystone of the arch of the 6 suites. And you might say, well, if it's a keystone which is not very centered because it's in the 5th suite, well, that's very often, the golden number is also not in the middle, and Bartok will later refer to it all the time. Now, in this case, we tried to measure a little bit when we were preparing our project with choreographer Anne-Theresa, because she's very interested in numbers, in proportions, and we looked, is this sarabande exactly at the golden Schnitt? I think it's golden number. I hope it's called like this in English. And we realized it's a bit later than that. It's not the case. Whoop. I apologize. I hope I'm still online. I just had somebody trying to call me. If you will forgive me, I will try to get rid of this. My apologies. So I'm almost finished. what I want to say is that the Sarabande is a bit after the golden proportion in the suite, but it's about there. And I think in terms of the dramatic of the Sixth Suite, this Sarabande has this very, very special role. And the way Bach decided to give it this special role is by going full steam, going the furthest in what makes these six suites, which is the invisible bass. Remember, we talked about it in the very first workshop. Six suites for cello solo senza basso, and this is the whole point, and this is why in this particular movement he goes the furthest in this direction to show how strong this absence of the bass can be. To finish about this, I had that brings me to one last question sent by Alessandros Botinis from Greece about this Sarabande. And he saw when we played the Mitten, this choreography of Anne-Theresa de Kersmaker, when we performed it in Athens, which was an absolutely unforgettable experience outdoor there in this antique open theater. And Alessandros was there, and he noticed one thing about this Sarabande, and I will read it to you. So, why did you end the fifth suite with the Sarabande? I will explain right away what he means. You made it sound natural that the suite should end there. However, could you share with us the idea behind this extraordinary decision? Thank you so much, and wish you all the best. So, in this choreography by Anne-Theresa de Kersmaker, Anne-Theresa decided, we decided together, we talked about the structure, the form of the sixth suite. And there were two aspects. One was that Anne-Theresa wanted to have really absolutely no break. She wanted to have the sixth suite in one straight dramatic unit. And we did actually, in the process of rehearsing, we did some run-throughs of all six suites with the dancers, the choreography, and she had made the choreography for all the movements. And we realized then that how important silence is, and how disrupting the flow of notes of a discourse was important for the attention, for the concentration, and for the ear. So in the process, from the third suite, we would start to have moments of silence where dancers would dance without music. In the fifth suite, I play most of the time by myself, no choreography. The lights dim out, it goes very, very dark. And indeed, we decided to leave this concentrate of dramatic, which is the Sarabande, to leave a bit of silence afterwards. And then I would move on the stage and go to another place, and we start with the extraordinary contrast of the beginning of the sixth suite, which is a ray of light and of opening. And this relationship between the Sarabande and the sixth suite was working very, very strongly. But of course, next week we are going to talk about the gavottes and the jig, which end the suite, which are also absolutely fantastic movements. But it was, so dear Alexandros, to answer the question, it was more about finding the right dramatic in the context of the choreography and of this show in particular. Now, dear friends, it is the moment of our guest, and dear Raphaël Imbert, are you there? Yes, here you are.
Hello,
Raphaël.
Jean-Guihen.
Hello, dear Raphaël. Thank you so much for finding the time to be with us today.
Oh,
Uh,
it's real pleasure. It's an honor, but I do apologize for my English for all listeners. But I'm very happy to be with you, even
yes,
by
well,
chance. But it's a great chance, and I really appreciate your introduction. It's very interesting, and yes,
thank
thank
you.
you.
Well, Raphael, I think you know anyway about your French, about your English. It will be an opportunity for the people to see two French people communicating in English with each other. So it's something special. You know, we should put us together in some kind of a special show. You know, like French
Yes,
speaking
I
English.
know it should be great. In fact, it's a
Yeah.
beginning of something.
So no, but Raphael, I really appreciate because you are one of the persons who, despite all the cancelled concerts and everything, is still very busy because you also have responsibilities as a director of the Conservatoire in Marseille, which you started last year, and everybody is saying how, despite all the COVID and all these things, you managed to give a new swing, a new élan to the conservatoire. So that's really fantastic. I'm so happy for the young musicians who are there. Um, I guess my first question to you, Raphael, we um, you 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 are an amazing improviser. Absolutely a master, and I've had the chance to experience that with you on stage, and sometimes improvisation is probably very often the maillon faible, the spot in the classical musicians that we are, that is a bit missing, and that we should try to develop, as Sasha Götzel in another workshop mentioned, because he said that's the point. Our sopran line and everything should actually always have this improvisation quality. So my question to you is, how do you see, how do you, you are relating, when you improvise, you are always relating to harmony. How do you see in Bach's music, um, how he deals with harmony, and also with harmonies which are not shown? Is that something that one finds in the jazz once in a while?
Definitely, the first, I think the big thing, I'm using to say, if you don't agree about the fact Jean-Sébastien Bach is the first great jazz man, it's impossible to discuss with you. Uh, so we can stop it if you don't agree with that. But it's a joke, but in fact it's quite true, and we are, Bach is very special for jazz musicians since the beginning of jazz. In fact, you talk about, for example, you talk about Lutheran chorals. This roots is very important in story of jazz because you have a link, harmonic link between church European music, especially German and English church music, and the beginning of jazz with gospel and spirituals. For example, it's quite easy to find a common roots with Bach and jazz music on this on this on this point. In other points, you can find a strong link between Bach and jazz about swing, because this is I was very interesting about what you say about invisible bass. It means invisible stream. It's in other way, but because the bass is always here, but the Bach is a genius of enigmatic things, and you can choose if you want some different bass. And when we when we read different harmonization of the same chorale, you told that it's very important. You have never the same bass, never the same harmony. And in jazz, for example, the importance of bass and the walking bass. This is the bass you play on on double bass or electric bass, sometimes in cello. You have to play something different in each beat but on harmony. It's very this game is very similar, you know, if you compare to what you read on Bach music. It's very important for me to say what you read, because in fact, in a way, what we know about Bach music is it's about paper, you know, but we can imagine what the how sound and great music we can back play as an improviser. It's very, it's like a new galaxy. In fact, if you when you think about it, because what we have about Bach, it's what is written, you know, about with paper. But we know Bach, he was an amazing improviser, and we can feel, I think, this link with organ music, because organists, especially in France, keep the tradition of improvisation in classical music. This is a major point, in fact, it's a very important subject, in fact. Why classical musicians don't improvise now in the 20th and 21st century? Because in the 16th, 17th, and 18th century, as a classical musician, as a musician in Europe cultural area, you have to improvise. Right. You have to play with folia, with different kind, like us as a jazzman with blues and jazz standard. It was quite exactly the same thing. And in the time of Bach, Bach was most famous as an improviser, as a composer, in fact, because he, in a way, you know, when time of Bach leaves, Telemann was most famous, most à la mode than contrepoint and fugue as like Bach, in fact. But as an improviser, Bach was a genius, recognized in all Europe.
Yeah. Raphaël, I know, I asked you if you could have your instrument ready for us. And I want to ask you something. I want to challenge you on something, but tell me if I'm totally crazy. So you and I, we have done actually in a recording called Complice, and before on stage, we have recorded two pieces together. There was this a piece by Coltrane called Alabama. And we go into the Sarabande that I was talking about today, the Sarabande from the Fifth Suite, and you improvise on this Sarabande with the unplayed bass. Now, I have a crazy challenge for you. Would you imagine now doing your improvisation on this Sarabande not being played, the Sarabande that has a bass that is not being played? So that would be like a 3-layer absence of something, and you could play a few bars of this. Would you do that?
It's a good challenge. I will try to do it. Because improvisation, it's about memory, and sometimes memory, our brain, I think, the big thing in time of Bach is brain and memory was very strong, because art of memories. And now, because of numeric, of phone, smartphone, our brain is there, you know.
That's
but
true,
sometimes, as an improviser, it could be a good thing. I will try to play something now, as you asked to me, just with my reminder or something. Okay.
Thank you, Raphaël. Raphaël, inspired by Fifth Suite, by the Sarabande from the Fifth Suite. Raphaël, I have a last question. Actually, just 45 minutes before this show, a young, very dear friend, young cellist, um, uh, we hadn't been in touch for a while. We were writing, so how are you? Okay, fine, fine. And um, and she was mentioning that the it is so challenging, these days with as musicians, these confinements, this not being in touch, not being. Do you? Because I know you are dealing with uh, all these young musicians at the conservatoire and everything. Do you have something you want to give the young musicians about some idea about how to deal with this situation at the moment?
It's a good and difficult question, in fact. Um, we have in moment in France, especially. I don't know what is the feeling in Germany, especially in England now. It's very difficult in many parts of the world. But in France now, this second time of this strange, amazing moment and very difficult, very terrifiant, I don't know the word,
Terrifying. Hmm.
terrifying moment. For the first lockdown, it was like very surprise and terrifying moment. But now I feel something more down in the spirit of musician, especially of young musician. Many questions about what will be my job in 2 years,
Hmm.
3 years. I want to be a musician, but what happens after that? And we have to. It's not just okay. Everything will be cool, we have to keep the hope, of course, but it's quite difficult as a director, as a musician. It's quite difficult to say that. So just to say, no, don't worry, it will be great. I think it's about emancipation. It's about love. This is a very strange word to speak about. You love music, don't worry about it. You have to work. You have to share it, because in fact, we will need you after all this. We need young artists. We will
Hmm.
young for everything after
Hmm.
that. And it's not about this is of course, I know, I think it's the same thing for you. Many musicians, old, young, very inquiet, I don't know the word, worry about the situation, about it will be the end of music, it will be the end of cultural politics, etc. Okay, we will have culture. Culture is always here, in all
Yeah.
situations. So, but the very important thing is we need young people for after that. We need
Yeah.
energy. We need creativity. We need war. We need investissement. We need
Yeah.
this young feeling, and we
Input.
need yes, definitely.
Mhm.
This is the
Okay.
most important thing to say for young people now. We need you, and we will keep you free to do what you want, to help for help us in this after this situation. The most important thing is not now, it's for after. We talk already talking about the world after the
Hmm.
but I don't know what will be the world after that. But definitely we need young la jeunesse, youth, especially.
Great. Thank you so much, Raphael. It was really wonderful, and thank you for playing as well. Everybody, I see you next week with the gabots from the fifth suite. I look forward to it, and stay safe and healthy, and still keep the love for music as Raphael taught us. Bye bye, everybody.